Thank you, Pastor Hollenbeck. All right, got the mic working. Good. Thank you for that introduction. Really, yes, this has been a blessing. I'm going to go ahead and share some yes to answer you. Pastor Bethany will take a turn sharing something as well. She'll have a part in this. It's good practice for us as we go out on deputation to different churches that Bethany can have a part in that too. But I wanted to start with giving you a little bit more of an idea about what being a missionary is all about. Really, being a pastor, I have never understood completely what it is to be a missionary, the whole process. And, I know missionaries come and visit our church and they share a report, but until you've really gotten into it, you can't understand it, right? So now I have a much deeper understanding of this process. So I hope that what I share will be able to help you understand this process better too. And then, yes, I will have a little bit of preaching if there's some time left. So the mission board we are with is Baptist Mid-Missions, and this is their logo here. Their headquarters is in Cleveland, Ohio, or near Cleveland, Ohio, and it's called the Global Ministry Center. Nope, I'm not going to get it here. Technological issue. Yeah, you've got it there? Maybe the window needs to be active? Like maybe the PowerPoint needs to be the first thing. There we go, yeah. Okay, so this is outside of the headquarters, and that's where my wife and I went for the candidate seminar. I was training about how to be a missionary, and I wanted to take time to give a little bit of history of the organization. I really learned a lot about that, and of course I love history. So the mission board was begun by William Haas. Has anyone heard about him before? A couple of you. Not a lot know about him, but it seems that this man went to Central Africa with a different mission organization. He went there and tried to get some work going, but there were some disagreements with that mission organization, so he came back home to recruit more people to join with him to go and serve there. And he decided to establish his own mission board. I don't know if you can read the wheel that's up here. It's kind of a long name. It says, the General Council of Cooperating Baptist Missions of North America, Inc., Incorporated. That's a lengthy name. I am glad that that's not the name of it anymore. But they changed the name to Baptist Mid-Missions, and I always thought, where does the mid come from? What's that about? Mid, why is it like the middle? Like, we're trying to keep our balance here. We're not going to swing from left to right, or because we're in the West. I don't know. Well, it came from being the middle of Africa, where William Haas went and established his missions there. Now it's called the Central African Republic. And Chad, it used to be called French Equatorial Africa. And so it was always in the middle of Africa. So that's where we get the name Baptist Mid-Missions. And that became the name it was known by. And they have a lot of mission works around the world now. This book, I have a copy here that was published within the last year or so, The Reward Unseen, talks about William Haas's life, and I would encourage you to order it, read it. When I left the conference, Bethany and I, while Bethany was driving home, I read the book. It was a really good book about William Haas, his life, and just really wow and challenging. So you can buy it from Amazon. And it's required reading, actually, for new missionaries. We have a reading list. I think there are about 15 different books that we are required to read before we can be officially on the field, even though we already are on the field in a sense, right? But anyway, so before we reach 100% of our support, And that's when we're considered on the field, when we hit that mark. But one of the things we need to do is finish that reading list. We'll show you several of the people that we met. On the left here is the president of Baptist Missions, Dr. Odell. I love that man. He was a pastor at First Baptist Church in Elyria, Ohio, and God led him to become the president of Baptist Missions about 5 or 6 years ago. And he has a passion for that mission board, for the missionaries. He's a great man. He's tall. He's really tall. You have to look way up to see him. If he comes to preach here, you'll practice. You can stretch your neck up and get some exercises in before he comes. I think he's taller than Pastor Hollenbeck, but anyway, but he's a great man. And then this other picture is Travis Gravely. He is responsible for recruiting and enlistment for new missionaries who join the board, and really Travis worked hard over the last year with us, spoke with Pastor often, trying to figure out what we need, as we're in a unique situation. Like, obviously we need interpreters for the conference, and so he worked hard to make all of that happen, and it was a blessing that Bethany didn't have to do any interpreting during that time. And just to give you an idea of what we learned in the 8-day seminar, starting on Monday, and we were there on Saturday too. On Sunday, we went out to local churches, but on Monday morning of that following Monday, we also were there. We had some of these topics like the history and identity of Baptist Missions, its core values, interviewing with field administrators, what is Safe Haven. This is a really neat program that Baptist Missions has for missionaries. I said, hey, you need one of these for pastors too. But it's a place where missionaries who are struggling, having a difficult time, who may be in need of counseling, can come to this place called Safe Haven. And Jeff Newman and his wife, Sherry, they lead this ministry, and it's in Illinois, very close to the airport, so you can get off the plane and go and get the support that you need, and it's a blessing to have this ministry. Of course, there was a lot of financial information, policies, and our church has strict guidelines that we have to follow with giving and matching donations, but Baptist Missions has so much more policies. They have almost 3,000 churches that donate to their missionaries, and they are accountable for every one of those to make sure that the government is satisfied with all of the donor information. And they are accountable to all of you who give to make sure the IRS is happy with how they keep track of things. And so they are very specific in the way they deal with that. So that was a lot of good training. And then we had a communication workshop that was 2 full days. And apparently Baptist missionaries haven't done a good job of communicating. So they hire a specialist who comes in. Now, I'm teasing about that. That's a joke. They do a good job of communicating. But they have this guy come in and present for 2 days about how to present. I was like, I've been a pastor for, giving sermons every Sunday for however many years, and I learned a lot. He really helped make sure we could improve how we communicate. That was a great workshop. And then we learned about video missionary reports, branding, accountability, child safety policies, the Articles of Agreement, just for the deaf group. So I sign deputation this way, as in raising support. Some people might sign it with a D, but I sign it raising support. And then tools for contacting, ethics about being a missionary, communication, just all kinds of things. So much information. This really felt like if you're going to take a drink out of a garden hose, you get this nice little sip of water that's perfect, right? I'm an 80s kid. I used to drink from the garden hose, right? compared to if you had a fire hose pulling back that water cannon, right, just being blown away. You could just grasp what you can out of it, right? So much information. But we know that as we practice and we learn and we practice some more, eventually it will be a part of us. So we just have to practice all of these things until we get used to it. And then I will let Bethany come and share something next.
Okay, so this is odd for me to be up here, and I'm going to go ahead and do it in ASL because it's easier for me that way. It makes me feel more involved in our ministry, and it's good training when we're out on deputation. So now, what Brian already shared with you, you probably feel a little bit like us, how the fire hose is like all getting in our face, blasted at the same time. And so here's some more information you'll get blasted with. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and share about candidate school. Well, it was a lot of neat things happened, probably to me more than Brian, but the two of us were both really nervous starting with this big step for us. Well, in the deaf culture around the hearing is really hard. Like, how do we interact? Like, that was something that really was nervous for us. But it was really cool how God blessed us. He always makes a way. So one thing that I really wanted to share is that all the interpreters, they were all Christians, and that was something that we didn't think would happen, but they were all Christians, and even cooler, some of those interpreters were involved with the local deaf ministries. And so it was just really cool to interact with them and learn about their ministry and share back and forth and just fellowship, and that was such a blessing. Moving on, it was really cool how they welcomed us and how they involved us and interacted with us. And that was really such a blessing because we were so nervous. It's always hard to connect with hearing people, but we always made such a good connection with that. And then in our class, well, this is our class, plus two more. They're not in the picture because they're in Creative Access Nations, or called CAN. So they couldn't be in the picture, but it was really cool to see. And an interesting thing about this class is that statistics showed that in our class, the age range was about 42. So we were all a little bit older, and you always expect missionaries to be young, like kids, but most of us were older, and that was really cool to see that connection there. And several of these missionaries had already worked in other countries and then came back I'm not sure, they switched boards or they came back to get deputation, but a lot of them already had cool experiences. So 3 of these missionaries worked with Bible International, and so they helped translate Bible into different languages and match to their cultures, and so that was really cool to see how they were there. And then 3 other of these ladies were single. And then me and Brian and one other man were involved in what we call Global Fit, and where we do part-time missionary work. And even better, the missions board they wanted to see what all these missionaries had needs for and how we as a board could make them better, what their needs were and how to help with that. So they asked all of the missionaries to fill out these forms, what were our top 10 needs. And so they collected all this information out of all the world, and one of the top needs, not like the top, but like one of the top, was reaching the deaf and how to tell them about the gospel. And so they thought it was really cool that we were going to be involved with that. And so the lady on the left next to me in the picture with the brown hair, she knew ASL, which was cool growing up. She grew up in Beloit, so, that's close to us. And so we were like, wow, we come from the same place, and here we met in Ohio. So she really had a heart, and she wanted to serve for the deaf in Slovakia. And then next to her, the other lady with the red hair on the right side of the picture, she was learning ASL at the time. And so we went out to the Netherlands. And so she was going to the Netherlands, and she saw that they had needs there too, and so she wanted to learn how to reach the deaf people there in the Netherlands. And so it was really cool to see that the 4 of us out of 10 people really just wanted to serve the deaf, and it was so amazing to see how God worked that together. So, all right, so while we were there during training, there was so much to learn, and then during breaks, we took time to fellowship, have coffee, eat, and then we'd go back to learning, and then break, and talking, and getting to know each other. And so that was really cool to meet. There were so many people. The interpreters, we had interpreters during meal times, and so that meant we could meet different staff members and talk to them, and that was really nice and such a blessing. Next slide, please. And then on Sunday, the missionaries in the candidate class went to different churches, and on Sunday morning, Brian and we went to this one Sunday school class at North Royalton Baptist Church, and it is an old church. It was really cool though. Our church, we're like, oh wow, it's old, but this church was even older. I think they're gonna soon have their 200th anniversary. So that was cool. They're beating us. But it shows how this old church, it had a lot of passageways, and there was this one door that we looked in and it had a tall rope that went up to a bell tower. I was like, I really want to pull it, but I shouldn't. But anyways, that was a really cool place. And so Brian, during Sunday school, he explained what we were going to do and our ministry, and he did get to preach in that morning service. And it was really neat for them because that was their first time experiencing a deaf person in front of them preaching. Next slide. And so in the evening service, we went to a different church, and really this one was far away out in the country. It was a beautiful drive, but again, this church was really old, and again, it beat us in age. And that was cool. Their building burned down in a fire, but they rebuilt, and so the history was really cool to learn, and it was cool to see their parallel with our church. Moving on, one thing that really touched my heart is at these 2 churches, the people came up and they were like, oh, hey, so I work with someone who's deaf, and I don't really know how to talk to them, and I've tried to explain the gospel, and then another person came up and said, yeah, so I know my neighbor is deaf, or this friend has a cousin who's deaf, or whatever. And then another church, they're like, oh, my daughter's learning sign language, and she wants her church. They have deaf people, and so she wants to be more involved with them. I thought, wow, because honestly, when we go to other churches, they're like, oh, yes, I know deaf people, they're here, but what do you do about it? Do you really want to interact with them and reach them? And so that was just amazing to see, even though they knew a little bit, they really just wanted to create a bond with these people and reach them, the gospel to them. And so that week, on Monday morning, our girls joined with us, and my parents drove them and brought them to us. we were really excited to see each other. It was fun to see each other again. And then during that time, we met with some special people who were really just amazing, and they really just bonded with us, clicked. So the man right there, his name is Kelly McMartyr. Markster. Oh, Master. Big Master. And his wife, Debbie. So they were a really sweet couple, and they just kind of clicked with us. And so we went out to lunch and enjoyed the meal there. And it was interesting to learn about, I think they enjoyed learning about deaf culture. And it was cool, and we were like trying to explain it to them. So those two serve in Brazil, which is for more than 20 years, and now they're serving here in the US. Okay, and then the other family that we met, Brian Seymour and his wife, Ava. It was really cool. Brian, his family history was awesome, but his grandfather, right? His grandfather, Brian's grandfather, his great-grandfather served with, and they helped found BMM, and so they have a long history with Baptist Mid-Missions, many generations. And so they grew up in Africa. He grew up in Africa, and then his wife grew up in South America. So that was cool to meet all these people from different cultures, and that was just really nice. And again, our families just clicked. And they really helped give us tips to Brian, like, how do we deal with the financial stuff, and they really helped support us through that. And so it was really just such a blessing to meet other missionaries and feel such a good connection to them. Do I have time for one more thing, or am I done? Oh, okay, he said, nope, I'm done. All right.
Thank you, Bethany. Good job for the first time presenting anything. All right. This family really was a blessing to us. So now with our family conference, that was 4 nights, Pastor mentioned that he came for the installment service that was on Monday night, and we became appointees. In other words, we are allowed to raise support now as appointees of Baptist Mid-Missions and through our sending church, East Delavan. And the installment service was a neat thing, and the whole family conference was great with singing and preaching. And so then we had a workshop with Steve Anderson. He is our field administrator for North America. And so once we reach our full support, we'll be working more closely with him. And his dad was the former president of Baptist Mid-Missions, so he's well-known, a familiar figure there, and he used to be a pastor as well in Colorado. This man, Larry Fogel, the guy on the left there, we had a really long talk about his program. He was a missionary kid in Chad, Africa, and he talked a lot about the culture there and just, I could see his passion for Africa. He couldn't stay there any longer, but Muslim groups had taken over, and it's difficult to reach those people now, but you could see his heart for the people. And then the final night was a big blessing. This was called the Inner Circle, where all the missionaries who are on furlough or about to go onto the field for the first time, they all stood here at the front, and then everyone else gathered around the auditorium holding hands and praying for those missionaries who are about to head back onto the field. That was quite a blessing. So, you see that? So, what's next for us then? We had this great, wonderful time, just encouraging, and now we get to come back to the hard work, right? So, I want to share what you can do for us. what we are working on now is our prayer card and designing that, getting our branding going. I know that that's important. You know, I'm sure many of you have copies of missionaries on your refrigerator. I hope that you'll stick ours up there too. Maybe the first one you see when you open that refrigerator door or something, or in the Bible, and oh yeah, when it falls out of your Bible, okay, yeah, I'll pray for you. I don't know. They're not done yet, but when they're done, we'll hand them out. But we have a meeting on Tuesday with a group about getting that done. We'd like to order some banner displays. We're working on setting up a website. We want to make sure that the information is there, accessible, easy to see, look over. I know it could be a little bit different because, you know, maybe pastors haven't experienced having a deaf presenter before. So calling churches to present our ministry, that's a big thing that we need to do. Working on our video presentation. That's what's next for us. So now what can you do? The first thing really is pray. Just pray. Pray for specifically, pray in us, through us, and beyond us, the us being the missionaries. And not only for Bethany and I, but for missionaries around the world. So pray for our inward spiritual life, that God would be at work in us, changing us to be more like Christ. Praying through us, that God would work through us, that he would help us serve other people. And then beyond us, you know, that he would work far beyond our human limitations. We are people of error, right? We fail, we have our weaknesses, but in spite of our weaknesses, pray that God would be with us and still use us in his service. And pray for more laborers, pray for the harvest. Baptism and Missions has a great program called Pray 938. And it's an app that you can look at if you would like to. Pray 938. You know, from Matthew chapter 9, verse 38, he prays, pray the Lord of the harvest that he'd send forth more laborers. And so they outline several ways you can pray. Pray for our traveling and for our being able to contact churches. Pray about the challenges that we will face. The first one would be communication, because we are in a unique position that hearing churches with hearing pastors may not necessarily understand how we can communicate with them, and cultural differences, language differences. So pray that we would get through those barriers. Pray that we'd have effective communication with the pastors and the people in their church. You know, I'm very thankful for our experiences that we had at the 2 churches in Ohio who didn't know anything about deaf ministries, but as we were able to talk with them, that helped us see how we can work with other churches in the future. Especially for those who maybe wouldn't necessarily know how to work with deaf people. Pray for travel, our vehicles. We have our old rusty car, our silver one, and we have our red one that's in better shape, but pray that they'd stay in shape and provide for our needs to do what we need to do as we travel around. Pray that the engine would keep on the go. Pray for our time and the location too. Our goal is over this next year to focus on local churches that would be within like a 2 or 3 hour drive. We'll see where God leads with that. And then when I am able to be done with my full-time job and can be out more if we need to do more deputation, pray that we'd be able to do that. But we're hoping to really reach our home area. I don't know if you realize, in southern Wisconsin and southeast Wisconsin, from say Madison down to Janesville, over to Kenosha and up to Milwaukee, there are about 40 independent Baptist churches, about 40. Okay, that's 40. And deaf people live in these areas. And so we need to catch that burden to take responsibility for this work. Other challenges for finances. I still am working at the deaf school for one more year and raising support at the same time. And this is going to be a big transition from us, from having a job and benefits and all those things to being self-employed, so to speak. You know, Pastor Hollenbeck is self-employed. And so the burden would be on us for taxes, benefits, all of those things. We raise support to provide for all of those things. And so that's going to be a big mindset shift for us and our family. So pray for us in that transition. And the United States is one of the highest costs of living in the world for missionaries. And you probably feel that, right? As your pockets feel like they have holes in them, right? I do literally have a hole in my pocket, right? And I can feel it. I can feel the money dropping out. But yeah, it is expensive to live here in the United States. I was talking with the financial person, and he gave me the estimate. I was like, whoa, well, what was that number there? Really, that much is what I need. And yeah, that's what I need. And he told me all the reasons why. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, because I'd be self-employed, and so I have to cover all of these costs. But while that feels daunting, I know that God can provide for our needs. And he has already provided for us all along, and I know he'll continue to do the same. And also pray for our deaf group here, right? I might be less available, so pray for our group to be understanding, to continue moving forward, to not be discouraged, but to keep on, keep gathering together, and get to know God. We know that God has a plan for our group here at East Delavan Baptist. And then the other thing that you can do is to give. Give faithfully to your local church, first of all, and to the faith promise support that you've already been giving to. These missionaries we have on our wall back here, we've got to faithfully give to them. If God lays it on your heart to give to us as well, that's fine, but just make sure you continue giving to your church and to the faith promise. There is a unique program that they began last year. Someone gave a large donation to Baptist Mid Missions for those who are just getting started on deputation. So that if by the end of the year, December 31st, if that new missionary has raised already $2,500, then this donor has a matching fund to add $2,500 on top of that. So that's a good jump start, like you get your car started and to just take off. In the same way, that's a great way to help us just take off with what we need to do with getting our display in place and all of our materials, and so that we can get on the road with that. Oh, it's hard to see that small print up there. I'm trying to look at that. I guess I need bifocals soon. I wanted to take a minute to show if you wanted to give at the website. The website is bmm.org, and so you would go to this tab here. You could search. And then you can have partner with, and you can read our bio that's up there on the website about what God has called us to do. And you can look at the View Missionary. There we are. It's a bad picture, I know. We'll get a better one up there soon. Anyway, so you can click on these. Here you can contact me directly. Really, last week, someone emailed me through this and said, I'm praying for you in these specific things that we had already mentioned in our biography. And there are so many missionaries there. You could just go alphabetically through there and pray for them. Get their contact info and say, I'm praying for you. That would be a great inspiration for them, really. Just a great encouragement to them. And I'm not very good at understanding logo designs necessarily. I was like, oh, this is a nice logo, like spreading through all the world. and going north, south, east, west. It looks like a compass, but as I looked at it more and more, I was like, wait a minute. See these arrows? I thought that this was going out, but the arrows are all pointing to the center, to the cross, right? And that really got to me, that all that we do in ministry, in church, when we come together, it's all for Christ. It's all about him. It's because of him. Without Christ, we can do nothing. Ooh, I don't know if I can preach. We are almost maxed out on time. But very, very briefly, you don't have to look at verses here, but I wanted to go over 4 different things that I learned from the seminar. About a missionary's mindset. When you read the book of Philippians, I've enjoyed that book. I like it very much. But one person taught about Paul's mindset as a missionary, and his mindset is shown very clearly about missions through this book. So I'll just take you through, and you can just read the verses on your own. I will just share these points with you. The letter of Philippians, now this is not what I shared, but this comes from Jeff Newman, the one who runs Safe Haven, and he gave us these 4 points. Would you mind going to the last slide? Can you do that, Matt? There are 4 points that should be ready on that last slide there. Yeah, you can keep going to the very end one. And it shows all the last 4 points there. Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead and back up to the first one then. Perfect. Thank you. Sorry, that was my mistake. So prayer. In Philippians 1, 3 through 11, you see an emphasis on prayer. Paul, as a missionary, prayed for the churches in Philippi, that their love would abound more and more, that they would grow in the knowledge of Christ. And so he prayed. So missionary's mindset needs to be one of prayer. Secondly, it's our attitude. In Philippians chapter 2, verses 1 through 11, just one of my favorite passages in the Bible. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus. This mind refers to an attitude. Christ thought it not robbery to call himself equal with God, but yet he humbled himself and became obedient. Even though he himself is God, he became man, was born of, became a servant, and humbled himself to the point of death, even the death of the cross. That's the attitude that was in Christ. And so thirdly, a desire to know Christ. We want to know Christ. Paul said that I may know Christ and the power of his resurrection and the fellowship of his sufferings, that I would know Christ through difficulties. My desire is still to know him. And then fourthly, contentment. In whatever state I am, Paul said, I have learned to be content. And how can I be content? Through Christ who strengthens me. And so Paul showed that he was thankful to the churches at Philippi. They're very in different verses in 2 Corinthians, and the churches in Macedonia, they were in deep poverty, but yet he says, out of your abundance you give. And so as Paul receives your sacrifice, he says, this is a sweet smelling sacrifice to the Lord, that much fruit may abound to your account. And so Paul shows his contentment. Whether he was in good situations or bad, he learned to be content. And so that is my brief summary and challenge to you from Philippians. And then we also learned about a missionary's mindset. My wife and I talked about this, looking towards deputation, thinking, I don't like asking people for money. I do not like that at all. I don't like the idea of asking for support. I'd rather just go on in my own struggle. My dad would tell me to have a good work ethic, to do it yourself, work with your hands so that you can have to provide what other people need. You do this. And so that's been ingrained in me, and I have to now switch that to say, I have to think about this differently. But as I think about this differently, when I go to churches to present the ministry, I'm also there to serve the churches. And God really showed Bethany and I that as we go to serve churches, we're there to help them come alongside and support the deaf. Deaf people are everywhere, not in large amounts, but they are living everywhere, and they all need to know about Jesus Christ. And every church needs to take responsibility to reach the community that they have in their area. That would include deaf people. And so we are looking forward to deputation as a challenge to burden other churches, to share that burden. And if they can't provide that service, then we can come alongside and help them know who can help serve the deaf in their community. So we will be, as I said, getting a video presentation together, we're posting a message on Facebook that if you would like prayer letter updates from us, we'll be putting that together soon, and more condensed than what we shared tonight. But if you'd like to get me, you can email me your email address, and I'll get you on our list for a prayer letter update. Okay. Thank you for your prayer support for us all along, for all the time that we have been here. Pastor, did you want to close in prayer?